Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Figgjam, a product designer working in London, and in this video I'm going to walk through my personal top tips for passing design take-home assignments. I'm going to walk through things that you should do, things that you shouldn't do with limited time that you have available, and I'm going to show some of my personal take-home assignments that I've passed to help you out as well. So if you're new here, be sure to subscribe for future design related videos, and let's get started. So what are design take-home assignments? They're simply mini design challenges that assess your problem solving skills. They are a chance for you to really showcase your product thinking, your interaction design, your visual design skills, and the company usually sets a challenge and it allows you to spend some time with the allocated time to showcase where you're at as a designer before the next stage of the interview. They're simply usually given after the telephone interview where the company's registered interest in yourself, and it allows the interview in the next stage to really give some good conversation and talking points to really talk over your challenge if they feel like you've tackled it well. And I'd simply recommend investing time in doing these design challenges, even though they may be unpaid. At least you get some really good feedback by investing your time in these design challenges. Companies have to invest time giving you feedback as well, and it can really get grasp where you're at as a designer solving these challenges, areas where you might think, oh wait, I never knew I had to improve on this area. Like they might say, oh, your visual design skills might be a bit weak, or your product thinking skills. This allows you to improve, so then on the next interview you can improve on these areas as well. So let's take a look at some design challenge examples. So let's dive into some design challenge examples that are publicly available through some companies on the internet and some that I've had to complete. And doing these design challenges not only helps improve your skills as a designer, shows you're committed to the interview process as well. So here is a really common design challenge that I've seen a lot of companies use. Is just tell us about a recently designed mobile app that you think's really well designed and successful. And yeah, it's simply, why do you think it's successful? Like, create a quick deck with the time that they have available, and it gives you a chance to show your visual design and design thinking skills. And they want you to spend 2 hours on this task, which is pretty short. I know some companies recommend spending 4 hours on a similar task as well, but I wouldn't recommend spending much longer on a task like this. The way I'd structure this out is simply have a plan within those 2 hours what you're actually going to spend the time on. So with this task here, I'd automatically, before I start the task, have the app in mind that I'd be using and that I've really enjoyed recently. So for example, I'd probably think about using Apple Music or Spotify or the TfL Go app, and if you're in London, it's a great transport app. And from here I'd simply lay down the slides and talk about what areas I really want to tackle and improve on the app. Because when I consciously use these apps, sometimes I mentally note some of the frustrations. For example, the lyrics feature in Spotify is something I don't really feel works really well, or the discoverability of certain artists doesn't work too well, and I'd maybe look at tackling this. Let's look at another design challenge. So let's go on the Monzo website to check out another design challenge example for a take-home assignment, and this one's quite interesting. It's about redesigning or making a companion digital app for an oven that has no physical controls. And this is a publicly available interview process by Monzo with their design challenge outlined here, and they recommend you to spend an evening or two to complete this. So one thing I recommend is spending more time than they say. The reason being is because you could have way more interviews to complete. You could get burnt out really easily by all of these interview processes, and reality is that you should be at a level to complete these challenges within the guidelines and the time that they recommend as well. So if you're really struggling to meet the time, you should try and break down the task and think, what did I do this time that really stopped me or stumped me from completing it within the 1 to 2 evenings that they recommend here. But I recommend make sure you spend at least a minimum amount of time, and it shows you're more committed to the process. But let's talk through some examples of challenges I've completed and some tips. So now let's just walk through a design challenge take-home assignment that I've completed that successfully moved me through an interview round for some companies at the time, and we're going to walk through the example earlier of choosing an app that's been recently launched that I really loved the experience of and why I thought the UX was successful, and the visual design, as well as what do we feel we can actually improve. So I chose here the TfL Go app, and for some context, it's basically the transport app for London to help you use a tube network. And the reason why I thought it was so successful when doing a challenge like this, first of all, think, why is an app successful? It's because who is the app designed for? Why did TfL go out and solve this problem? And what were they actually solving the problem for? So who is commuters that want to use their services day to day? But there's various different type of commuters, and they had a strong emphasis on accessibility. And why? Because there isn't a single source out there other than using third-party apps like Google Maps, City Mapper to find out the latest tube times and the most accurate routes. And what are they really trying to solve here? They want people to be able to use their services with more peace of mind and with the biggest amount of ease possible. And this is where I broke down in my presentation. So I spent 4 hours on this, and I included, part of that 4 hours was the presentation as well. So why was the UX successful? Is the accessibility is so good in this app. I've never seen an app with such strong emphasis on accessibility. So 52% of the tube network in London is now step free. So just because majority of commuters might not need to use step-free access, is such an important part of someone's journey, and they made this really clear with the color palettes. They use step-free access, dedicated journey planning, and they thought beyond the journey here as well, in the sense that they had like offline access on the app. This really showcases my product thinking, really framing this down, as well as later on I can showcase my interaction and visual design skills as well. And it focuses on one thing well, because competitor apps like Google Maps, and they are not just a navigation app going from A to B like this TfL Go app. Google Maps is more about finding restaurants, getting directions for your car, and there's various other things that it focuses on as well, like finding the best restaurant in the area. And this is where I talk about the great UX. Here you can see in this app, they've got all the step-free routes to use for tube. I've never seen an app do this, and this is so cool because it's such an important point. If you're in a wheelchair, or you struggle to walk or go up and down escalators, you want to be making sure you can use stations that have lifts and they're step-free from the actual train to the platform. Then I dive into, they display essential information for a commuter. They focus on this persona of a commuter. If something's delayed, I need to know that straight away, and they do that so well. Unfortunately, TfL and the Underground, there's always some sort of delay when you need to use the service the most. And this is probably one of the most important features that I feel like other apps, they just really don't get this well enough, is that you don't always have access to the internet. Your app still needs to work, and it's such an important edge case, because when I'm deep underground in the tunnels, I still need to know, when do I get off? Am I at the right stop? I want to plan a new journey whilst I'm underground. No connection, no problem. It works so well. This is showing my product thinking that TfL have thought about this, and it's a totally different twist that they've added to the app. I can mention an app like Apple Music that completely breaks when there's no internet. Spotify isn't that great with their offline experience, and there's some apps that just do not work whatsoever, but they've thought about this. Is so important here. Like I mentioned, the color palettes and accessibility. Remember, I only had 4 hours, so I've touched on really key points here that I thought really stood out to me. And the accessibility in terms of color palettes they use, they contrast well. The bold fonts that they use is really clear, and they've got really nice little labels that make it clear that the red line's the central line, the turquoise one here is for the DLR, the silver for the Jubilee line. Like, it's very, very clear, and it makes it easy, and it's consistent with the branding, not just the app, but the actual tube network as a whole. So the visual design system is done really well with the accessibility here. It's such a really cool app. So one feature I focus on, so we're on the next part of a challenge, like what's one journey they could improve on, and they don't have live departures for all of the potential train journeys for a Pacific station. So I want to go from like West Ham station here to Langdon station, but they'll only right now display the train that you'll be taking, which would be the 9:28 here. But what happens if I want to leave a bit later? I want to get the 9:42, or is there any more? They don't display this that well in the app, and I thought they could improve this. So here you can see the live departures of the app, and I thought let's actually design something where it makes it very simple, consistent with the design system that they're using at limited time. I couldn't jazz it up too much, but what I'm showing is basically how I'm thinking about the interaction, how this fits into the app, a bit of my visual design skills as well. I'm keeping it consistent in their cards. We're taking the C2C line here. I've included the badge. The most important information is that it's departing at 9:28. This is the soonest, and then this is 9:42. Then I had some explorations that I showed here as well. It's nice to include this. And then this is how it fits in terms of the interaction flow. So the existing flow of the app, and then you can click on each station to see the actual live departures and how often the trains depart. Because if I miss one train, how long do I have to wait till the next? Because some stations it's only 4 minutes, others it could be 15 or 20, and it can be frustrating if you miss one as well, right? And now I'm going to show you the prototype. Within the time I managed to take some screenshots of the app. I'm not designing every single screen that they've got. I basically used some screenshots and then designed that additional journey inside. That's a massive tip that I feel like that can help you. Let's dive into this prototype. So let's just walk through the prototype that I created for this design challenge. Again, I use the screenshots to save a lot of time because I want to spend 4 hours on this and nothing more or nothing less. So when we go into here, this is the existing app, and when you want to search to go to a station, you go at the bottom here. It's really convenient actually, the fact that it's right at the bottom, because it's really ergonomic for your fingers. And then you can either type a station or select one that's recently done, and you can see each station has every single line that's possible. So these are tube connections such as the Central Line, the DLR, the Jubilee, Overground, and the blue one I believe is that maybe like TfL Go. So let's select Langdon, and then we've got the departures, the existing flow, but one thing I mentioned is that I want to see the live departures of each station. So Stratford International, I want to leave right now, but what happens if I leave 5 minutes later? Will I still make that train? So the app doesn't really solve this problem. So I had to, with the chevrons, design something new here. So you go into the app and it shows the train that's departing the soonest, and you can see how frequently these trains run as well, because that's something the app doesn't show, because you only can see one departure. So if I miss one train, I have to wait 8 minutes. Not too bad, but some stations you could be waiting 30 minutes, 25, or if you're lucky it could be frequently, so every 2 to 3 minutes, so you're not too concerned if you miss one train. What about West Ham station? The same here. It'll show, oh wait, the C2C, you'll make it fine if you get to West Ham station for the 9:28, but if you miss that one, then you'll probably have to get the 9:42, and you have to wait a good 14 minutes here, which isn't too bad. It could be worse, but at least I now know this, and it just makes the journey a tiny bit easier. So that's a prototype that I showed, and I used quite a few screenshots to bake them in and make that journey to complete the challenge a lot quicker. And you can view this prototype and the presentation deck by subscribing to my newsletter in the link in the description below. So last thing I want to say is, if you want to grab this deck, head in the link in the description below and you can view this presentation that I used to complete the design challenge, and it's all yours. And one thing I would say is, have that beginner mindset, embrace the challenge, the fact that these challenges will help you be a better designer in the longer term. Embrace the journey that you're on and the struggle that comes with it. That's what makes you a greater designer in the longer term. If these challenges are something that does take time, it's all a part of that sacrifice for the longer term. as well. And remember that someone's going to be giving up their time to give you feedback as well, and that's what ultimately will make you a better designer. So embrace that and be grateful and humble when you receive your feedback as well. Be open to that criticism and that feedback, so it will help you out in the longer term. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. I hope that me running through my tips and tricks for take-home assignments will help you out, and hopefully I'll help you land that design job that you deserve. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe for future design related videos, give this video a thumbs up, and comment down below design challenges that you've been taking on, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.